Pivot table is a powerful tool in Excel which can help you summarize data in meaningful ways. And in this video, let's learn all about pivot table and its features. So why do we need a pivot table? Right here, we have a sales report of a supermarket chain which has 1000 rows of data. And by just looking at this data, we cannot answer questions such as what's the most sold product line, or what's the most popular payment method, or which branch had the highest number of sales. And with pivot table, you can answer these questions easily. So let's now learn how to create a pivot table. First, click anywhere in the data range, then go to insert and click on pivot table. This will open up a new window, and Excel has already detected the data range. And by default, Excel creates a pivot table on a new worksheet. So click on OK, and now we have a blank pivot table. On the right, we can see the pivot table fields and 4 boxes below that. So now you can drag these fields to these boxes to create a pivot table. So I'm going to drag the product line to the rows box and the sales field to the values box. So now I have a pivot table that summarizes the sales by product line. So I'm going to rename this column to product line, and I'm going to highlight this column, go to home and click on this comma button to change the number format. And if you want to summarize the sales by branch, all you need to do is remove this product line field from this box and bring the branch field into the rows box. You can also bring the product line to the columns box to have a more detailed report. So that's the basics of creating a pivot table, and let's now learn some of pivot table's features to further analyze this data. Now this pivot table is showing the sum of sales by each branch, but you have the option to change this. So right click on the field here, go to value field settings, and now you have more options such as count, average, max, etc. If you click on the show values as tab, you can also show these values as percentage. So I'm going to select the percentage of grand total and click OK. Now the values are shown as percentages. You can also drag the sales field again to the values box to show the sum again. You can filter this pivot table data by dragging any of these fields to the filters box. So I'm going to drag the product line field, and now I'll be able to filter this data by one or multiple items. And you can add as many fields as you want to this filters box. Let's now learn how to format a pivot table. First, I'm going to bring the branch field to the rows and the product line below that and the sales field to the values box. And if I click on design, I have options with regard to subtotals, grand totals, and under the report layout, I'm going to choose tabular form. I also have option to insert blank rows, and I'm going to click here to choose a pivot table style. Let's now learn how to group items in pivot table. So first step is to select the items that you need to group, click on pivot table analyze and click on group selection, and then select the rest of the items and click on group selection again. Now the product line items have been grouped into 2 groups. So I'm going to name the group 1 into fast moving items and the group 2 into slow moving items. You can also group the dates. So let me show you how. First, I'm going to remove these fields and I'm going to bring the date field into rows. And Excel has automatically grouped these dates into months. So you can ungroup them by clicking on undo and go back to pivot table analyze, click on group selection. And now you have options to group these dates into months, quarters, so on. So I'm going to group this by quarters first. And if you want to group this by quarters and months, you can select both. And if you just want the months, you can just click on quarters again and keep only the month selected. Let's now learn how to create a frequency distribution in pivot table. First, I'm going to drag the sales field to the rows box and also to the values box. Then I'm going to click here and go to pivot table analyze and click on group selection. This will open up a new window, and the lowest sales value is 2 and the highest sales value is 980. And this is the increment for our frequency distribution. So I'm going to change this to 200 and click OK. Click here, go to value field settings, and I'm going to change this from sum to count. So now we know that majority of the sales happen between 2 to 201. Calculated field is a field that you can create from existing pivot table fields. Right here I have the product line, the total sales and cost, and I'm going to create a profit field. So first click anywhere in this pivot table, click on pivot table analyze, go to fields items, click on calculated field, and this will open up a new window. So I'm going to name this field profit, and for the formula I'm going to double click on sales minus double click on cost again and click on OK. And now we have a profit field, and this profit field can only exist in the values box. Calculated item is effectively a row with formulas. So right here we have the branch and their sales figures, and let's say each branch earns a commission of 1% on their sales. So I'm going to create a row that shows the commission earned by each branch. So I'm going to click anywhere in this column, go to pivot table analyze and click on calculated item, and I'm going to name this branch A commission, and the formula will be the branch A sales figures multiplied by 1%. So now I have a new row for the branch A commission, and I'm going to repeat the steps for the other two branches as well. Slicer is a tool that makes it easy to filter data in a pivot table. So to insert a slicer, click anywhere in the pivot table, go to pivot table analyze and click on insert slicer. Select a field and click on OK. So now you have a slicer. If you click on food and beverages, the pivot table will be filtered to show the sales from food and beverages, and you can change it by clicking on other items. To choose multiple items, press Ctrl on your keyboard and click on the items. And to clear this filter, click on the clear filter button. You can have multiple slices for a single pivot table. So repeat the steps to insert a new slicer. Let's now learn how to write formulas referencing the pivot table. So I'm going to write a formula to calculate the profit of branch B, which is sales minus cost. If you look at the formula bar, you're seeing a complex GetPivotData function. Even if you try to drag this formula down, you'll get the same result. The advantage of GetPivotData is that even if the pivot table layout is changed, the formula will remain intact. But if you want to write a normal formula, all you need to do is click anywhere in the pivot table, go to pivot table analyze, and under pivot table options, uncheck the generate GetPivotData. And now you'll be able to write normal functions. And you'll be able to drag this formula as well. Let's now learn how to update or refresh your pivot table data. So if there's any change in your source data, you simply have to click anywhere in the pivot table, go to pivot table analyze and click on refresh to update your pivot table. Now I'm going to add a new row to this data, which is a new branch. And if I go back to our pivot table, click on refresh, you won't see the new branch because this pivot table is still referring to 1000 rows of data, and the row that we added newly is not included. And to include that, click on pivot table analyze, click on change data source and include the new row. Click OK, and now you can see the new branch. If you want the pivot table to update automatically every time you include new data, I suggest that you change this data range into an Excel official table by pressing Ctrl T. And if you include the new row and go back and click on refresh, you'll see the new branch again.